Good day to all, and thank you for tuning in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. For all of our new listeners and viewers who are tuning in for the very first time, I'm Pastor Pope, and thank you for allowing us to come into your listening and viewing environment. We are here with you every Monday through Friday from either 12 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time or 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, scheduling permitted, to address whatever topics you might like to discuss, whatever topics you find difficult or you find challenging. We are here with you in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, broadcasting live from the FijiWater.com sponsored studio, where you can discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You can discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families. You can discuss dating and relationships, whatever's in your heart, whatever's on your mind. It's important that you know that God is concerned about that which concerns you. And that is the reason that we are here with you every Monday through Friday from 12 p.m. or 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, where our broadcast is brought to you by Fiji Water, Earth's finest water. You may already know that Fiji water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it is created by nature? It is untouched by man. It starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock, where the water collects in a natural, sustainable artesian aquifer, where it is bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the blue cap. Fiji Water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you will save money at FijiWater.com. This is not just ordinary water. This is Earth's finest water at FijiWater.com. And for those of you who continue giving on the Give segment of our app at New Life-Delaware, and those of you who support the broadcast by giving on the contribution pages of our websites at NewLifeMinistriesInternational.com and NewLifeInternationalCDC.com, we thank you all for your support. And if you're using the QR code or the link provided on Facebook and YouTube in this technology era, we thank all of you for your continued support and for your commitment as we fulfill our commitment to God to be here for you in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. So I want to remind all of our listeners and viewers, we are in the midst of our FijiWater.com sponsor promo. So this will run for the remainder of the year. Every month, one listener or viewer will receive a case of Fiji Water, will be selected to receive a case of Fiji Water from FijiWater.com. All you have to do is go to our internet radio station, WKAPFaith.com. The first three songs you hear at 11 a.m. or 6 p.m., list those songs along with your name and your email address. Text them to the T-Mobile caller text line at 267-992-1424. One of our listeners and viewers will be selected to receive a case of Earth's finest water from FijiWater.com. I'm going to address a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you have no relationship with your siblings. They live an entirely different life than you live and refuse to take life seriously. Okay. You want to know, so you said you would like them to live a better life. You don't know how to go about getting them on the right track. So let me first of all say this to you. And I'm going to say this to you because it's real important that you, first and foremost, before you try to give them any advice on how to live life, and first and foremost, before you try to change anyone, the one thing that you want to do is, first of all, be an example, which you're doing, and that's a good thing. The example that you have to give them is how to, get into a relationship with the Lord. So we have a term that we use in the Christian faith. They need Jesus. We all need Jesus. But in the Christian faith, we understand you have to meet people where they are and build them up from there. So you have to encourage them to be saved from themselves. And in order for them to do that, they they really are going to have to form a relationship with the Lord. So you have to be consistent in your Christian walk so that they can then desire the same joy and the same peace that you have. You have to be consistent in everything you do. And I know that sounds like a big responsibility. You're saying they're grown adults, they should be able to get it for themselves, but everyone's not going to get it for themselves. They need examples. They need someone to mentor them even into their salvation. And if it's their sibling, who better to do it? They see you more, at least they see what you're doing, so they can emulate what you're doing. So the question you have to ask yourself is, are you consistent in your Christian walk? You want them to have a better life. And I know part of the reason you want them to have a better life is because you become the example, you become the headline of why can't you be more like that's the question you have to ask yourself. Are you being the example that will lead them to their salvation? So let's break this down for all of our listeners and viewers. They don't take life seriously. There's a lot of people that don't. There are saved people who don't take life seriously. And what I mean by that is they don't take their relationship seriously. They don't take the relationship with the Lord seriously. They say they love the Lord, but the Bible tells us there's a lot of people who will say, Lord, Lord, and Jesus will say, but I never knew you. I never got to know you. I never had the opportunity to have a relationship with you. You can say you're saved all day long. You can say you're a Christian all day long, but we have to live that example. So you're being a good example to them, but then you have to ask yourself, are you being a consistent good example? See, I'm gonna step on a few toes here. So let's think about what that looks like. If you say you're a Christian, and you say you have, and this is for all of our listeners and viewers, and you say you have a relationship with the Lord, but you still drink from time to time with your friends, maybe pretty consistently with your friends, then you're being consistent. That's what they see. They see you pouring into the temple of God something that doesn't give the Holy Spirit a place to dwell. There's a reason when you look at these shops, they're called wine and spirits. It's all a spirit. If you are hanging out all the time, turning up, as they say in our society today, and that's what they see you doing, in their mind, they're living no differently than you're living. You just say you're a Christian. You've got to know how important it is for all of us to walk this thing out. None of us are perfect. We're all going to sin and fall short of the glory of God. I get that. That's scripture. The idea is to be perfected every day. Not perfect, but perfected. Meaning, I'm going to do everything that I can possibly do. The Spirit's already doing its part. It's dwelling in me. But now I'm going to set aside my flesh and I'm going to do whatever I can do every single day to look like I'm in a relationship with the Lord. To really be in a relationship with the Lord. So, I use drinking as an example. Here's another one. If you say you're a Christian and you're saved and you're trying to live out this life, but you're spending all your leisure time hanging out in the clubs, hanging out in the casinos, it's not conducive for your best quality of life. You might be living a good quality of life, but it's not good for your best quality of life, because some of those things are going to disrupt what God has purposed for you. So we've just got to do a better job of being the example of a relationship with Christ. Not just being a Christian, but of a relationship with Christ. What does a relationship with Christ look like? Well, I'm working on my prayer life. meaning I'm praying more to be in the presence of God. I'm reading scripture every day. I'm meditating every day. I'm tracking every day. Am I becoming the best version of myself that I can become? This is all part of being in a relationship with the Lord. Now, you might say, well, Pastor, it sounds like you're doing a lot of work, and, what is that? How does that benefit me? Well, the Lord has benefits for us, but we have to be willing to be in a relationship with the Lord that results in our benefits. And so I'm going to walk through that again. We really have to increase our prayer life. And because you sent in this communication about your siblings and the way that they don't take life seriously, the one thing you can do to increase your prayer life is spend more time praying for them. Pray for them. Pray for a change of heart. Pray for a renewed spirit. Pray for a renewed mind for them, that they will take life more seriously. And it won't happen overnight necessarily. It just means that you have to pray without ceasing. You have to keep praying and believing that what you're praying for them shall come to pass, that God will turn it around in his own time. Because one of the things we have to realize is that even though we're praying for people, they have to go through whatever it is that God is doing to shape them and mold them to become what he would have them to become. And then they have to desire to make the change and maintain the change. That requires desire. I want to get this thing right. I want to get this life right. I'm doing the best that I can. Listen, none of us have any control over what might occur over the course of our lifetime when it comes to our health. God is in complete control of what goes on in our health. And part of the reason is because sometimes it's not just for us. It's for other people, because they can visibly see what's going on when you have health issues. But that, we know a healer. And so in God we know there is no sickness. So we know that's an attack of the enemy, but God allows those things to occur in our lives, maybe for our own benefit or for the benefit of someone else. Now, having said that, all the other aspects of our lives, even though we're not in control of them, we're responsible for them. You're responsible for your health also. We've talked about that many times. Once a month, we talk about enhancing our health and wellness, at least once a month. The goal is to make certain that we maximize the quality of life, that we maximize our success, that we enter into the fullness of God, we maximize the fullness of God for the generations to come. This is a big responsibility. Being a Christian is a big responsibility. But it's our reasonable service for what Christ did for us. So we have to say to ourselves, okay, I've got this work to do. I've got to work out my salvation, but then I have some work to put into my salvation that's going to benefit the lives of others. It's going to be a living testimony of the Lord. It's going to be a living testimony of the relationship I have with the Lord and you have with the Lord. And then what we pray for is that the lives of your siblings will be changed. They'll begin to take life more seriously. They'll begin to desire to live life and live it more abundantly. Everyone has heard me say at some point in time, you can live, but you cannot have life without a life in Christ. Can't live it more abundantly. Not feasible. We all should want the best life, and the best life does not imply satisfying our flesh with things that are not good for us. Remember, God will withhold no good thing from you. He wants you to experience good. But if it's not good for you, he will withhold it. And it needs to be withheld. But sometimes we don't, sin is self-inflicted nonsense. So it's things we do to ourselves. And truth be told, what we do our way is never going to be better than what God does his way. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest and fastest 5G provider at no extra charge. If you're not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will move you into our queue so that you may become a T-Mobile customer and experience America's largest and fastest 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill, and if you auto pay by attaching a credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill. At T-Mobile, America's largest and fastest 5G provider at no extra charge. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you are having second thoughts about recent decisions you have made. You want to know, what can you do to ensure you get the best result? So let me say this to you. The first thing you want to do is trust God. That's the very first thing. Trust God and don't try to outpace God. Try to walk with him. I mentioned the other day, I don't know what day it was, Monday or Tuesday, about the footprints in the sand. We want to step in every footprint that God places before us. When we get weak, when we get tired, when we get weary, the Lord will hold us up. He'll carry us. He'll carry us through until we get stronger. Then he'll put us down and we'll walk again, but we want to always walk in the footprints that God has laid before us. So you've got to trust God every step of the way. And then what you want to do is monitor the environment around your decisions. What does that look like for you? So whatever decision you make, and this is one of the things I try to encourage people to do. Don't just change the decision because you don't like the way things are progressing. Sometimes you just have to let God be God. You just have to, always we have to let God be God, but you have to be willing to be still and know that he is God. You have to be willing to trust that whatever he's doing better than you can do yourself. But you have to examine and monitor the environment. Remember Smarter Goals, where we talked about in the end, you have to make some revisions sometimes, but it doesn't mean you change the decision. Because a double-minded man is unstable in his ways. You can't today make a decision and then tomorrow change it. It's unstable. There's no stability there. You gotta, and then waffling back and forth. You can't, you know what I mean when I say that. You get flipped. You can't just decide today, okay, I'm going to make this decision because I believe that it will enhance the quality of my life. I believe that it will allow me to maximize my success. I believe that it will allow me to enter into the fullness of God. As long as you've checked with God first, you've got to stand on that decision. As long as you've been prayerful and you've meditated and you've read the scripture to see what has been done before, because there's nothing new under the sun. Once you make that decision, stand firm. Stand on that decision, knowing that God's going to do the work in the environment that you can't see, in that spiritual place that you can't see. What you see in the physical realm is one thing. What God is doing in the spiritual realm is a whole, much greater component. Let me say it that way. So you've got to trust God, but you have to constantly, if you have any, I don't want to use the word doubts or concerns, but if you have any reason to believe that you made a decision that is going to possibly not lead to the best result, monitor that decision, monitor the environment around that decision. What's the peripheral? What's happening in the peripheral environment? And then, as you monitor it, as you make whatever necessary revisions there may be, trust God that He'll do the rest. See, that's the problem that we have in life, not just in the world and not just in the Christian faith, is we don't trust God enough that the decisions that He's inspired us to make, that we can stand on them. So we start trying to change some things. We start trying to make some moves and maneuver. And no, God said, just be still and watch what I do. Just watch what I do. I didn't inspire you to do that so that it wouldn't have a positive result. I inspired you to do it so that I can get my glory. I inspired you to do it knowing that you might not be able to do what you want to do or what you think you should do in your own power. But when you get to that place, you got to know that God is all powerful. You got to know that God is all. He's all. He's all in all. He really has everything worked out. And that doesn't mean that you don't take the necessary steps to do the work that God has assigned you to do. That's not what wait on the Lord means. You work while you wait. You keep working and you just wait for God to move. Because the good news is He will move. He will move and will do exactly what He said He would do. Everything He says He will do shall come to pass. And you have to be mindful of that. You have to just trust Him at all times. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by PorscheAmerica.com. If you are in the market for a high-performance automobile, one of the finest high-performance automobiles ever manufactured, go to PorscheAmerica.com, where you will virtually have the opportunity to build out the Porsche you desire to own. And if you're in our area, you can simply go to PorscheDelaware.com, ask to speak to Mike Didio, who's the general sales manager at PorscheDelaware.com. He will have someone assist you in selecting the Porsche you desire to own. And if you're in our area and you currently own a Porsche and you're just in need of service, go to PorscheDelaware.com, ask to speak to Mike Adams, the service manager at PorscheDelaware.com. He will have someone schedule an appointment for you. They will pick up your vehicle at your home or office, drop off a loaner vehicle to you, and return your vehicle to you when your service has been completed at PorscheDelaware.com and PorscheAmerica.com. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you went into business with your sister several years ago. You said during the pandemic everything was fine. You survived the pandemic, but she was focused during the pandemic. She was focused on the business. You said, however, since then, since the pandemic came to an end, don't be deceived. The coronavirus is still present, but the pandemic is over. Okay, we still have to take some precautions and be mindful that it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere, just like influenza doesn't go anywhere. But you got to be really careful because you can become more ill than with influenza. But both are serious, so we have to take our health serious. But you said your sister now all she wants to do is party and travel. So, okay. There's a couple of things going on in your communication, and I will point them out to you, and then we'll address them. So you went into business with your sister several years ago, because you knew she was capable, you knew she was competent. She had capital also. You both were able to go into business together. The pandemic became an issue for many people. It also became an out for many people. But let's talk about the issue it became for many people. It changed the mindset of the way, the mentality of the way we live our lives and what we want out of life. So many people were impacted by that. Everyone was impacted in some way. Even if it's as simple as it reminded you to wash your hands more frequently throughout the day. Everyone was impacted in some way by the pandemic because it's something none of us had ever seen before. It was over 100 years old the last time the world experienced anything like this. So all she had at that time, your sister had at that time, was focus on the business. That's all she could do. That's all she had in front of her. Now that that has come to an end, people are able to move around a lot more. People are able to fly. People are able to take flights to wherever they want to go. They're able to do whatever they want to do. They can go to any country. They can, things are wide open again. And now she's not as focused on the business. She's more focused on partying and traveling. You're struggling with that because now it's more work for you. So there's a couple of solutions to this issue. One is, and it begins with this, sitting down and having a conversation with your sister. The first thing you're going to have to do is sit down and have a conversation with her and explain to her that just because she's a business owner doesn't mean that she can just take time off and travel and take time off to party. So you're going to have to set some very permanent hours for both of you. See, the problem is you trusted her to do what you're doing, which is come in the morning and leave at night. She's coming in the morning, she's leaving it in the evening and early evening and going to go out and do what she wants to do with her friends. She tells you she's taking a trip. She tells you after she's purchased the ticket. She tells you after, when it is in the 11th hour for you to get ready to depart. And expects you to cover for her while she's gone. And then tells you, she justifies doing that because she tells you, well, you can do the same thing and I'll cover for you. Sounds good, but it's not going to allow your business to thrive. So you're going to have to set some very permanent schedules. This is what time you're going to come in. This is what time she's going to come in so that you don't get burned out. So what that looks like, and I'm going to just do this with you. She needs to come in 2 hours before the business starts, before the business opens every day. She needs to be in to open up, to get everything ready to receive the public. So 2 hours before, and then she needs to stay until the close of business. So that means at least 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. You're going to have to make that decision. And then because your business stays open late, you may need to come in from 11 until 9 when the business closes. You might have to do that. And the reason is because you'll be coming in and the two of you will be there simultaneously for 6 hours together to work, but then you stay later. So that gives you time in the morning, but you'll stay later at night and you'll close. You can either work that permanent schedule or you can rotate that schedule each week. You come in early, you leave decent hour, 5, 6 o'clock, then she closes. that will slow down some of the partying because now you've got set hours. As far as the traveling is concerned, you need to set some very permanent vacation schedule. What that looks like is whatever period of time you're willing to cover throughout the year, that's going to be considered, personal and vacation time. So if you say you're willing to cover 4 weeks out of the year, that means she gets to travel 4 weeks out of the year. That means once a quarter she gets to take a trip. If you're only willing to cover 2 weeks out of the year, she gets 2 weeks. The same with you. You get 2 weeks or you get 4 weeks. But whatever it is, set a very permanent schedule. See, these are the administrative things that you have to really flesh out and decide, okay, what's going to work best for our company. But at least there's two of you. So you can flesh that out and really make that a solid schedule. And you need to determine what weeks those are going to be. So that way you both have not only equal time, but you both have equal responsibility. Because right now she thinks it's all fun and cute because I got my sister. I want to go on a trip next week, I can take off and go on a trip and you'll cover for me. You'll be there from morning till night. And she gets to go. She knows you don't live that way. So in her mind, because you don't party, she gets to party. Because you only travel a couple times a year, she gets to travel more frequently. Well, you're going to have to break that up. You're going to have to make certain that she takes on the responsibility, because if something were to occur in your life, and God forbid, something were to occur in your health, she will not be in the frame of mind to keep your business thriving. You want to get it right now so you don't have to get it right later. Sit down and have a conversation with her, and then draw up the schedule. Make certain that you both review it and you both stick to it. And you'll find that everything will come together so much more effectively and efficiently. And speaking of effective and efficient, this segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Comcast Business. We all need to be more efficient, more effective, and more efficient in business. Comcast Business will give you the opportunity to do just that. Call Eunice at 603-222-7706. Your code is Pastor Pope, and with a qualifying gig bundle, you could receive up to an $800 prepaid Visa gift card. At Comcast Business, call Eunice at 603-222-7706. Your code is Pastor Pope. As always, Pastor Pope at Comcast Business. And with the qualifying gig bundle, you will receive up to an $800 prepaid Visa gift card. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your daughter thought that she would be the most marketable commodity your daughter thought that she would be the most marketable commodity when she finished school. You said then she got into the workplace and got disenchanted when her career did not take off. So, you want to know, how can you help? Here's the reality. You're a baby boomer. Your daughter is of that generation that truly believed that once they finished school, the world was theirs. And to some extent, that's true, because you get an opportunity to identify a career that you want to pursue. Using your business degree, using your marketing degree, whatever your concentration may be. Your expectation is that your career will take off. But then you have to recognize that there are external forces that can suppress your career. It can have an impact on your career, but at the end of the day, you still have a career. The only way to overcome that, and it's not necessarily going to take you to the place you want to go, it may take you to the purpose that God has for you. The only sure way of impacting your career yourself is to perform at a high level. You've got to be completely focused on giving 100% of the time. And that's very difficult for people to do, let alone the generation that came behind us. So you got to realize that they have a different mindset. Their mentality is now a sense of entitlement in many cases. They're armed with a degree, which education is power, knowledge is power. They're armed with some skills, some talent, and in their mind that should be enough. That's not enough. You have to perform at a high level. So that means everything you do from a professional and personal perspective has to line up with your goal for success. And that requires being thoughtful at all times. That requires thinking at all times. And working at a higher level than anyone else is willing to work. No one should be able to outwork you. You not only are working driven by your work and your passion for your career, you are going to perform at the highest level. That's the only way that her career is finally going to take off. And she has to be consistent with that. One of the problems that the generation behind us, you're an early baby boomer, but you're a baby boomer. But one of the issues is that there's no consistency, there's no staying power. I can move around and find myself. I can find what fits me until I want to do something else. That's free will, but that's not freedom. It's free will because you get to make that decision. But inevitably, if we're not performing at the highest level that we're capable of performing, we're going to find ourselves bound. We're going to find ourselves in many situations that we don't want to be in. that are going to make us uncomfortable. Because we have to realize how important it is to, I like what you said in your communication. Her career hasn't taken off. We want to soar at the highest level. We in our area, we're Eagle fans. And one thing we love about Eagles is that Eagles soar. We all want to soar. The Bible says we'll mount up like eagles. But in order for us to mount up like eagles, we have to be willing to perform at the highest level. Because eagles perform at the highest level. They soar higher than any other bird. They have a very specific strategy and method for not only soaring, but for survival. And in between survival and soaring, they understand the performance that comes in to play. That's staying power. That's consistency. One of the things I will share, one of the things I've told my children over the years is that when you graduate from college, the first job you have, you should stay in that job for at least 3 years. The very first job you have, stay in that job for at least 3 years. And I've since had to modify that and say that whatever you do, whatever career path you take, stay in each position, with each company at least 3 years. I'd like to see you stay longer, but at least 3 years. Because then you'll have a clear understanding of the environment, the culture, and that will help you to perform at a higher level. Not to mention you're learning something. Knowledge is power. So one of the steps on the path to success, career success, is consistency. We've got to be consistent. And I realize that there's a younger generation that finds it difficult to be consistent because they find that boring. But anything else disrupts the quality of your life. And the one thing you don't want for your loved ones is for them to disrupt the quality of their life. So you said, how can you, pardon me, how can you help her? Well, pray for her. Give her some guidance. Just remind her that Rome wasn't built in a day. Encourage her not to be in a state of mind that she becomes disenchanted because her career isn't moving at the pace she thinks it should move. Be still and know that He is God. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Nike Golf. If you are interested in experiencing the game of golf and are interested in enjoying a golf outing, go to nike.com/golf. You will see everything that Nike has to offer for you to enjoy and experience the game of golf. And if you are just in the market to enhance your health and wellness, go to Nike. For Nike Golf, go to nike.com/golf or go to nike.com and you will find everything that Nike has to offer for you to enhance your health and wellness at nike.com. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you are not getting pardon me, there's always confusion going on in your personal life. You're not getting the stability that you want in your personal life. So let me begin by saying this. So you said you're tired of the drama. Well, that's a start. But you also said that you are not certain how to eliminate the confusion from your life. Okay. You want to stop the confusion. Here's a very simple method. First of all, think of it in these terms. If there's confusion going on in your life, there's one common denominator to the confusion, and that's you being present. So you have to ask yourself, what problems am I creating for myself? How am I disrupting the quality of my life by the things I do, the things I say, by my attitude, by my behavior, by my communication? You know, if you have an attitude all the time, it is going to cause confusion. If you have behavior that is not strictly focused on your personal and professional success, there's going to be confusion in your life. If you don't have a relationship with the Lord, there's going to be confusion in your life. And the reason is because God is not the author of confusion. But without God, all you can have is confusion. Because you're going to spend all your time trying to figure out how to do things on your own. And you're not going to figure that out. None of us are. So we have to look at the one common denominator, and that's each of us. And then we have to say to ourselves, okay, so I've got to change my attitude. I've got to change the way I look at things in life. I've got to change the way I'm living my life. I need a new mind. I need a renewed mind so that I don't always say what's on my mind, but that I will speak to each issue individually. That's a different behavior. Different attitude and different behavior. I'm going to learn to communicate more effectively and efficiently with others. Communication is key. I'm not going to, and this is really difficult, I understand, because I understand the way women are wired, I understand the way men are wired. However, you have to be willing to rewire yourself and say this, I'm going to, and this is going to take me into another communication, but I'm going to be more disciplined. The root word being disciple. I'm going to be more disciplined in my life. I'm going to seek a spirit of excellence. That spirit of excellence means performing at the highest level in all that you do. Performing at the highest level in everything. So, you have to make a conscious decision to check your attitude, your behavior, your communication, your discipline, and your spirit of excellence. There's a component to life that will allow you to thrive if you're seeking the spirit of excellence. if you're trying to live with the spirit of excellence, that means I want to perform at the highest level every single day. And I'm going to give it 100% of the time. That's what we have to do if we're going to get to the place that God has appointed and purpose for our lives. But God is not the author of confusion. So if there's confusion, there's always confusion around in your life, then that implies that God is not present. So you've got to do something about that. You've got to keep yourself in God's actual presence. You've got to make certain that you are, and that's something I've been really focused on this entire month. I've been really focused on, once again, living in the actual presence of God. Living in the actual presence of the Lord. Knowing that He's present with me at all times. What can I do to be a better version of me? Not what anybody else is doing, but what can I do to be a better version of me and perform at the highest level so that I can then be an example to someone else? That's all part of life. It's all part of it. That's how we live and live life more abundantly, because in Him we live and move and have our being. So we understand that. So we've got to put in the work necessary to be all that we can become in Christ. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you have children who struggle with self-discipline. I said this is going to take me into another communication. You said they struggle with self-discipline. They want to do everything that they want to do without considering the consequences. That's a recipe for disaster. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. So you really, hopefully, are praying for your children, because here's the bottom line. If you're not disciplined, you can't be a disciple of Christ. Because I said this last Sunday in the Sunday sermon. If you love the Lord with all your heart, you'll keep His commandments. If you love the Lord with all your soul, you'll keep His word. If you love the Lord with all your mind, that means that you are always thinking about what you can do that will be pleasing unto God. And if you love the Lord with all your strength, He will continue to revive you. Does it get exhausting trying to do the right thing every day to stay on that path? Of course it gets exhausting, but the good news is the joy of the Lord is your strength. So as long as we stay in our joy and in our peace, God will give us strength. We got to recognize that without discipline, we have chaos. So you said your children have no self-discipline, and they don't consider consequences. You're going to find it necessary to allow them to endure the consequences. Because if you keep doing everything they ask you to do, then they're never going to endure the consequences. You're going to be there to bail them out every time, or I'll use a better term, you'll be there to give them whatever they want to keep them moving in the direction they're moving. But that direction isn't a good direction. So, you're going to have to allow them to endure the consequences. Consequences of what might happen. The unintended consequences. Because those are real. There are unintended consequences to every decision we make. There are results, consequences, unintended consequences. You just have to step aside and allow them to endure whatever the consequences are. I know we don't really want to see our loved ones go through something. But until they learn to endure the consequences, you know the old adage, that doesn't kill you will make you stronger, but in addition to that, God will never put any more on you than you can endure. So you've got to allow them to endure the consequences of whatever decisions they make. Because that's their growth experience. That's how they grow. That's how they become more mature. And when you do that, you will find that you are not interfering with what God is doing in their lives. You can't teach grown children self-control. It's not feasible. It cannot be done. You can give them suggestions on how to correct some things in their lives. You can give them recommendations if they ask for them. However, they don't have to take the advice, they don't have to take the recommendations. And if they're not thinking about the consequences of their decisions today, they're not there. So you got to allow them to grow. You're stifling their growth. You are stifling their growth by not, and the reason I'm smiling is because that took me back to something that my wife shared with me today, and it was about enabling people. And we have to be real careful about that, particularly when it comes to our loved ones. We have to be real careful about enabling. So you say they have no self-discipline, but that's because you're not allowing them to grow. You're not allowing them to endure so that they can grow. You're trying to solve every problem. You're trying to resolve every issue so that they don't have to go through some pain. You know, there's an old adage, growing pains. There's an old term, growing pains. There's going to be some pain in growth. We have to allow them to endure that pain so that they can grow. You don't want to stifle the look. You don't want to stifle them from growing and they remain little all their lives, because you can't get big when little has a hold on you. You got to do some different things. You got to make sure that they have some experience that you don't interfere with, that you allow them to endure the consequences. Allow them to go through it and grow through it. You know, that's important. They have to go through it and grow through it. But you can't interfere. You got to allow that to happen so that they can continue to make progress in life and hopefully at some point be able to soar like an eagle. They will mount up with wings like an eagle and soar. You won't have to worry about what happens to them when you go home to be with the Lord, because you'll know they're going to be all right. This segment of the broadcast, today's Daily Divine Direction broadcast, has been brought to you by Fiji Water. The Taste of Paradise will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you will save money at FijiWater.com. And remember, we are in the midst of our FijiWater.com sponsored promo. So all you have to do is go to our internet radio station, WKAPFaith.com. The first 3 songs that you hear at 11 a.m. or at 6 p.m., list those 3 songs along with your name and your email address. Text them to the T-Mobile caller text line at 267-992-1424. One of our listeners and viewers will be selected to receive a case of Fiji water from FijiWater.com. And one of our listeners and viewers will receive one each month. So only one listener and viewer will receive one each month, but it will not be the same listener and viewer. We don't want you to think you're getting a year's subscription. We want everyone to benefit from the participation in our internet radio station, WKAPfaith.com. So tune in every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,